First, we have roll call. Chair Eric Lawson.
Here.
Vice Chair David Haslam.
Here.
Director Jack Jacobs.
Here.
Director Robert Skinner.
Here.
Next, we have the invocation followed by Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, thank you for blessing us to join in this meeting. Please bless everyone's words. Let's all speak nicely to one another, be productive, and remember that we're all trying to do the same thing. We all want the same goal. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Next, we have adoption of the agenda. This includes consent and regular agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda, which includes the consent and regular agenda items.
I'd second that motion.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda. Public comment on the agenda. Seeing as no public comment, back to the board.
Wait. I can make a public comment now?
This is only
On the agenda.
On the agenda.
Okay, all right.
Seeing as no public comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have approval of the minutes. This is from the GRUA meeting held on October 8th, 2025.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the October 8th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the approval of the minutes. Public comment on approval of the minutes. Seeing as no public comment, back to the board for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have chair comments.
I'm going to defer my comments to the end. Thank you.
We now have general public comment. This is for everything that is not on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. 3,581 disconnects. 10,962,000 referred to collections. You won't even get 10 cents on the dollar, sir. Mr. Belarski claims that our bills have gone down and points to a chart showing that they've gone down $30 since the authority was formed 2 years ago. Half of that was a reduction in the fuel adjustment charge at 1,000 kilowatt hours. That was wiped out by bundled stormwater and solid waste fees in the city of Gainesville. That wiped it out. 402 of it is not savings, it's a cost shift. And if you look at the comparison at 2,500, which is not a bar graph, which is a chart, we're number 3 out of 37. So Mr. Belarski dropped an 8% rate increase on us, tricked us by saying most bills will go down, but it was not revenue neutral, and he knows that. He knows that. And my bills are much higher than they've ever been because I have master meters that evade the bundled stormwater and solid waste fees. And I have meters with 5,000 to 7,000 kWh that went up $40 or almost 4%. Mr. Belarski hit us with a rate increase after promising not to do so for 10 years. And that is vintage Mr. Belarski. That is what he does. As when he claims that he charges less than the tax collector to collect solid waste and stormwater. That is false. He charges 4%, tax collector charges 2%. Tax collector gets 98%. Mr. Belarski doesn't get anywhere near that, and the city has to hire a consultant every 5 years and pay him $350,000 to find all the money that Belarski hasn't billed, and he knows that. He knows that. Call it what you like. On the garbage carts, a 20-gallon cart is $1.23 a gallon. My big 96-gallon cart is 51 cents a gallon. That's regressive. Your net position is exaggerated because Belarski pays $750 million for the biomass plant with $75 million in closing costs. And on the financial statement, he claimed that as a result of this transaction, The electric plant and service went up by $795 million in value, and that is not true. So your deficient net position that cannot support your ridiculous debt is probably exaggerated, and the concealment of ongoing SOA losses eventually be discovered by someone other than me at a higher pay rate, which is everyone except you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connors.
Oh, good, good.
You want to go first?
No, it's fine.
You sure? Okay.
I think you shouldn't hear from all of it.
Where's the mic? Oh, it's over here now. Chuck Ross, good evening. I've got a number of things, but let me see how quickly I can get this out. The first thing is, once again, on the agenda, we have a budget or a financial year-to-date that shows a $49 million profit, and we have the financial statements that are not included as backup that show a $9 million profit. And I'm asking again, you need to reconcile the 40 million to the 9 million for transparency and accountability. And this is an ongoing problem. The next thing is, we have something on there called a fuel levelization charge, which I've never seen before. And then we have the fuel stabilization rate, which is a separate item now at the end of the year. So and these are questions that I go through again, and I'm asking that we explain to the public exactly how you arrive at these numbers and what the purpose of them is. What am I doing on time? Minute and a half, great. There's another question that I've asked in the past, and that's for questions, this is regarding the transmission lines that are going to be installed between the the Archer and Parker substations, that there's an interconnection with the Duke Energy, and there was a request for information for bids put out to construct these new dual circuit transmission lines. I'd like to have an understanding of what the progress is, where that project's at, or if it's anywhere at all. Also, I asked for some sort of report in connection with the how the lives of the generators are going to be extended. Still haven't received that. Lastly, we had an election. And the election showed that 75% of the people that voted to abolish this board. I would ask that you respect the vote of those people, take any action that's necessary to stop any proceedings that are halting the transfer of power back to local governance, and that this board resign. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ross.
I apologize for not being more prepared. I'd planned on wearing my suit and tie and stuff, but news today said this is 5:30 tomorrow, not 5:30 today, and then I found out different, very, very short term. All right, here's the thing, is I've got 3 degrees, 2009.
Sir?
Yes,
Would you please state your name for the record?
my name is Joe Hill,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
and I have a nonprofit and also a LLC in town. But anyway, I have 3 degrees, 5 years of college, 2004 to 2009. My first 2 years at Police Academy, getting a minor in law. Nothing but lawyers and cops as my teachers for 2 years. And I loved every minute of it because I've worn a badge most of my life. I've worked federal, state, and now security. And I read this. I went in green to the voting booth, and I read it. I says, do you agree to abolish Article 7 that abolishes the board? That's just state, bam, 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 how it says. Article 7 says we're going to abolish the board. Do I agree to abolish this article? And that's how I read it. And I'm very good. When I was a federal inspector at Kennedy Space Center, NASA considered me a genius. They promoted me to the level of engineer. I did design reviews on some of the space shuttle components and space shuttle projects. I'm very well versed in legal mumbo jumbo, especially federal. And was highly respected. But why can't it be a simple vote, yes or no, do you want you or not, okay? Instead of all the mumbo jumbo, number one. And number two is you got a third of people who use GRU outside the city limits. Why are you only making it city limits that vote on this? This is not right. Okay? Not right. The people in the city have a tendency to sociologically react in groups and emotionally. And people in the outskirts, they got their own land, they research things, pretty well educated, good old boys of the country are pretty smart boys and girls, okay? And might be surprised they wouldn't have made the same mistake I did. They would have researched it more and realized that a yes vote meant it eliminated y'all, and that ain't what I wanted to do. I said, do you agree to eliminate Article 7 that eliminates this GRU board? And I said, yes, I want to eliminate that article. Yes, that's how I voted, okay? It needs to be clarified, it needs to be more simple, and you need to include the people. 1/3 of the people the GRU serves are outside city limits, and that's my statement today, guys. I appreciate it. And had I known I was speaking today, believe me, I would have been more prepared. My suit and tie on, my Sunday go to meeting clothes.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Angela Castile. So I hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but I feel I need to. As a customer outside of the city limits, I am one of those. And at the same time, I've seen several people say that the referendum was very confusing. And then the court said basically that it wasn't. Okay, whatever. But less than 20% of the registered voters inside the city limits voted. Doesn't matter that it was 75% of the 20% or less that voted to eliminate the GRU Authority Board. Because the state should override the city on the referendum. There should have not been a referendum to start with. This board was put in place because the city couldn't manage the utility the way that it needed to. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Castillo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jyoti Parmar, and I'm here from the Sierra Club. And I'm here with a request for all of you. There are a number of your customers and our neighbors who are struggling with their bills right now due to the government shutdown, extended government shutdown, unexpectedly long shutdown. People, some of whom are working while not getting paid, and also people suffering from the pause in their SNAP benefits. We're here to ask if you would consider pausing disconnections on their utilities. There are a number of them who are having to make those choices, whether they're going to pay for their medicine or if they're going to pay the electricity bill. And the fact is that if your electricity gets shut off, within a few days, you can actually lose access to your children. The state can take them away because it's considered unsafe conditions. So when we say that people really are making those choices, they are. They're making a choice to go without their diabetes medicine or whatever in order to pay their utility bill. So you have the power and you have the opportunity, and I hope you'll consider doing this. I know there are a number of questions. We don't know how long this is going to take to restore people's income or their benefits. So maybe you could consider doing it for 30 days and revisit. Also, I'm going to ask if you would consider not forgiving their the reconnection fee. There are people who have been disconnected, who are struggling to pull together the money to get reconnected. And I'd really appreciate y'all. Sierra Club would be very thankful, and so would all of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stanley DeTuris, and says, we live in the county. We've lived in the county for 25 years. We did a quick napkin calculation a while ago. We've paid approximately $90,000 to $100,000 to GRU for services. We have no complaint with the services except for the debt. But from our point of view, when we have that much skin in the game, we don't see why we were told at the election site, you can't vote. No explanation, no, it's just that you're not on the list. I was offended by that enough that I started digging into this whole issue. My take on it is the GRU was being run by the city and was hemorrhaging cash. And you guys are kind of a tourniquet. I don't care who does the tourniquet. I think you're doing a good job, but I don't have any particular allegiance to any particular political. And by the way, man, I empathize. We have a friend who's a pastor in Micanopy. They're dying out there. I mean, they're struggling to feed their babies. We're going down tomorrow to donate what we can just to get them through. These are real issues, and I think what she brought up is a very important issue currently. But our feeling is if we have this much commitment to GRU and we're being blocked, and we're not even being blocked by GRU, we're being blocked by a city entity that seems to want to keep control. I don't understand the politics of it, but there's no looking outward and saying, you're part of our community, but we'll take your money. And you can't say how we're going to use it. That seems wrong to me. That just seems basically inherently wrong. So I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Thank you, Dr. DeTuris.
Next, we have director comments.
So we have one mic that I'm happy to pass down.
Start it off. All right, I'll address Mr. Ross's comments on there. So far as the transmissions line, my understanding is the lines are being moved at the request of Clay Electric, and they are bearing the cost of that. I don't know if he's talking about any different transmission lines than that, but that was my understanding, is that they were moving them. Is that relocating them?
Duke is expanding their transmission capabilities to their southern side, and as part of that, our lines get very close to theirs. So we will be obligated to move a few of those poles in regard to that transmission arrangement that we've had for 40, 50 years with Duke. So it's not building any transmission. It's simply working with them as they expand their own transmission. So it has, yeah.
All right. And as far as the generation capacity of our, and how we go about determining when we're going to, how we're going to extend the life of certain equipment, it's all individual. There's metallurgy tests, there's looking at turbine blades and things, metal fatigue. So it's going to be different for each one of our turbines and stuff. And it comes down to when it's approaching its retirement date and how, and the costs involved, whether it's cost effective to replace certain parts rather than get a whole new piece of equipment. And we've discussed those things before, but just as a reminder, that's how we go about it once we start getting to, and again, CEO Bolarski wants to elaborate on that. And then lastly, we feel for everybody that didn't get to vote, that lives outside the city. That's always been one of our arguing points, is that your GRU customer, and you should be able to get a vote in this. And, unfortunately, the city took a very cavalier attitude and said, well, just get annexed into the city, then you can have a vote. And, we don't share that opinion. So and that's why we're really, still fighting this and trying to fight for you on this issue.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, the idea that some people have the right to vote in this and some people don't, it's not okay. It's not biblical. It's not fair. It's not right. The 76,000 people that were eligible to vote, 10,882 voted yes. It's 14% of the people who were allowed to vote. That excludes the people who weren't allowed to vote. So there's 14% of the people, not 75%, if we're being realistic about the numbers, and that's only the ones that were allowed to vote. And the city did the best they could to, try to force that vote in a strange way, in my opinion. My wife was approached outside the town hall by the League of Women's Voters. They spent a lot of time and money to put this thing forward. The mayor herself said that the legal system probably wouldn't like them kind of underhandedly doing the vote like that before the appeals process is over, but they chose to anyway. So to those of you who didn't get to vote, we're sorry. You should have. I would ask you maybe to bring that to the commission and ask them why they think that's fair, and they'll give you a reason that doesn't really add up, but they will give you a reason that they would state is correct. We'll still have a meeting here. I'm willing to talk to Ed about what a pause of bills looks like, or reconfiguring, people putting people back on. But my understanding is we do a pretty good job about putting people back on the system if they are kicked off. But as the meeting goes, we can talk about that a little bit. If we do pause people who aren't paying, why aren't they paying? It's gonna be really hard to figure out who those people are, which people are taking advantage of it and which people really don't have the funds to pay, I think is a trick that I see quickly. You know what I mean? We do wanna help people that are in a bad way, obviously. And if there's something we can do that's gonna be smart and not let people game the system and not hurt the rest of the community, I think we can have that conversation. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but it's a talk we can have for sure.
Wow, have a lot to cover. I concur with my fellow members of the board. One of the things that I will say is the city is responsible for storm water and solid waste, so even though those are reflected on our bills, those are not set by us, the board, or GRU. That is imposed upon us, and we agreed to keep them on recently on our billing for an additional profit. So we're looking at a percentage versus just getting a flat rate on that. So as they increase the fees, GRU will get more money with us providing that billing. To go back to some of these public records requests, you have to remember that if there is not a document there, such as the generator life extension, I have not seen a document such as that. We are, by law, not required to create a document. So please be patient with this. It's something that you may not realize that we have requested, something that we touched base on and asked for more information. As those become available to us, it is available to you. So please be patient with that. As far as the board resigning, correct me if I'm wrong, back on April 1st, we contacted the DCA and started our appeal process. Correct? In or around there? My recollection is the city requested it to be heard as more immediately than what the court was looking at. We didn't see the need to do that, so the city jumped the gun by putting this referendum out there. They didn't wait for the legal process to play out. So that's a waste of $250,000 of taxpayer money possibly, depending on what the legal outcome is. Let me see, going through here. To go to Dr. DeTuris's comment, the comment that the city would supply to you is if you are just outside the city limits, vote to annex into the city so they can get more tax money, and then you would be able to vote in a special election like this. That's been their operating procedure from the get-go on this. Annex in, annex in, annex in. So that's what you will hear, unfortunately. And I would also like to request, and I don't know if either of our attorneys here know, I would like to discuss pausing the shutoffs for 30 days and possibly waiving the reconnection fee for 30 days. But in order for people not gaming the system, is it legal for us to ask for someone to prove that they're on SNAP benefits or they're a federal worker? I know there's a lot of intricate things there, so I don't know if that's even legal for us to do, so people can't game the system. Or if we would be even, they would have to probably come to GRU to do that, I would imagine, or email documents in, and it's some, so I don't know what kind of staff time that would incur, but I would like to have discussion on that as well. Other than that, crews are doing fantastic out there. See them working, talk to them all the time. I want to also commend electric, water, and wastewater, and the marking crews, because I know fiber optics are going in all across the city. Guys came awfully close. They said they called GRU. Energy delivery guy was right there on the spot within 20 minutes to make sure, because they were putting in a box in the ground right next to a street light. And they thought they were hitting something, but it ended up being construction debris from when they built our houses that was there. But thankfully, they stopped, and it was a quick response. So I do appreciate staff. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you. And just to follow up, Dr. Tours, I would recommend that you contact your legislators. They are the ones that also have some influence into the legislation that established us, and so that's another option for you.
Next we have CEO comments.
Well, it comes at an appropriate time. There's a lot of things that are being discussed here. Let me see if I can put a little perspective on some of these things. First off, GRU makes arrangements all the time for folks having trouble paying their bills. We've found in the past when we make blanket pauses, if you will, as you called it, Director, that covers too broad an area, and people lose the rhythm of payments and they get into trouble. So we found that we've incurred more bad debts and people's inability to pay because they get further behind. So we encourage people to call us, and we're willing and able to make payment arrangements for them. It's nice to get to know the people personally, and we try to structure things that are applicable for them. In terms of waiving the fees, you run afoul of the PSC with treating each customer the same way, so waiving fees. You know, other customers can say, well, you waived those fees, why aren't you waiving mine? And it's all about fair and equal treatment of customers in particular classes. So we try not to do that. So we'd be glad and willing and able to look at these payment arrangements for folks, but I'd shy away from the blanket ones. And then in that regard, our new customer service officer has actually got over $100,000 from the low-income program. It's got Low-Income Help Assistance Plan, LIHEAP, and there's a sub-program called Promise. So we have money flowing in, $100,000 that's going to assist folks from a grant outside the organization. So that's being applied right now. And I understand that folks are some of them are in difficult situations, but we're well equipped to deal with those things because we do it on a regular basis. Let's see.
Ed, do customers know how to access those grants or request those grants?
Yeah, we can get something out. We can hit the customer base, but we have the Catholic Charities and the other groups in town. I think there's 3 of them. Maybe by the end of the meeting, I'll actually maybe get some phone numbers and can repeat them, if anybody's listening. So yeah, we can do that. I was going to talk about one thing. I see we have somebody from the Sierra Club. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the emissions, but there are these other questions that have been brought up about the referendum and the vote, and I kind of just wanted to lay a little something out here. What hasn't been said from the board is that under House Bill 1645, those folks in the county have gotten a seat on the board and can get up to two seats that represent county customer interest. That's what's so important about House Bill 1645 and the beauty of House Bill 1645. It offers representational rights to people that are outside the city, and they're sitting up here on the board. So it wasn't giving somebody a vote, but the legislators brought that to the state and put that into action. So I think that was a very good thing about House Bill 1645. And I think there needs to be a Civics 101 discussion about this whole thing. I mean, we have the U.S. Constitution, we have 50 state constitutions underneath that U.S. Constitution. Within those 50 states, we have city charters that are subservient to both the U.S. Constitution and there's a supremacy of the state constitutions. You know, there's thousands of city charters. So what House Bill 1645 did, the state put it in play. It was the will of the legislature, and they gave representational rights. They were prescriptive in how the board would be established, how they would operate, how GRU would operate. They made it very clear. And so when the city decided to have a referendum and an election, they were going smack dab against the will of the legislature. So while the will of the people is very important, there's no will of anyone unless the rule of law is followed. So that's why, representing the authority, we went and took legal actions. This was not capricious, it was not arbitrary, it was very structured. And so right now, House Bill 1645 is the law. We're following the law. And what people don't realize is the election would have stripped the authority of its rights of an appeal, not getting its due process rights, and it would have dissolved the authority. That's pretty extreme. It's almost a death penalty for the authority and representational rights of the folks that are speaking here. So that's why we have laws, and that's what we're following. So in something a little lighter than that, we don't talk about this much, but we've done a lot in terms of environmental accomplishments. I've talked to you about the fact that we've ostensibly done away with coal use. We retrofitted our DH2 facility with natural gas fired generation. We retrofitted the Kelly to get another 30 years of operation. So I was just looking over the state of the utility, and we have certain environmental accomplishments. Particulate matter is measured, anything under 10 microns. And back in 2021, before we were converted from coal to natural gas, we were emitting 64 tons into the environment. We've reduced that by 90%. This particular matter is what gets into people's lungs, causes asthma, causes all kinds of problems. So we emit less than 7 tons as compared to 64. Mercury is down 66%. We used to produce almost 4 pounds a year, and now it's like 1 1/4. Nitric oxide, it's went down 51%, 1,643 tons to less than 800. Sulfur dioxide has went down 64%, 615 tons to 225 this year. CO2 is down 16% from 1.9 million to 1.675 million tons. So through all of this, we have become very much of an environmental steward, and we're looking to do, more of that. But this comes on the heels of using natural gas as a transition fuel and also a cleaner fuel than coal. So I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. So I just wanted to mention that. And then finally, Debbie Doherty sent me an email today and said that we actually are looking at getting a $19 million clean water state revolving fund grant that will be used for projects probably in late '26, '27. So unexpected, but it's the hard work of her folks over there that are putting money into GRU's coffers to be used in environmentally friendly ways. So just kudos to the water group, and we'll have somebody here from the water group talking to you about some directional boring. So I think with that, I think I covered what I needed to. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is attorney comments.
Chair Lawson, I wanted to follow up on Ed's comments about the litigation. I think he covered one of the major topics that's under litigation right now, which is the representational interest that people outside the city have on this board. Up to 2 members will trip that percentage of 40% of the customers probably sometime in the near future here. And then there will be 2 members from outside the city that will represent. And as Ed stated, your management is, by House Bill 1645, very directed. It's pecuniary interest, reduction of debt, and that's your focal point, which is what we have been doing on this board, and to the tune of $200 million in a very short period of time, and reducing the debt structure that you had when you came into this position to manage this situation. And I think one of the things that the authority's been criticized for is that we've been dilatory, we're playing games, we're not doing the work expeditiously. And I think framework-wise, we've had 2 referendums now that have been placed upon us. So if there's an emergency, it's certainly our position that that emergency is an artificial emergency, been placed upon us by virtue of calling for a referendum when we're under litigation of that very issue. And when our office was asked to proceed with an expedited briefing schedule for the first DCA, we said, no, this is the First District Court of Appeal has stated this is a case of great public import. And we believe that a full briefing schedule is necessitated by virtue of the fact that this is an important case that's in the state of Florida right now. And by the way, the city has asked for an extension of time to file their answer brief. That's not stated anywhere. We consented to it and said, yes, take the time you need. Both sides need to have the ability to flesh out all of the issues that are in front of the first DCA. I believe this is one of those cases where the court, the 3-judge panel that we'll have, is likely going to grant oral argument, and so that will be an additional time to flesh out argument. And that doesn't need to be done on a hurried up and abbreviated basis in our estimation. So being criticized for that position, I just think is wrong. I wrote down some dates that I think are important. The other thing is that the word sandbagging hasn't been used, but it's kind of that argument that we filed a motion for injunction late, but there's a reason why we did that, and I'll get to that in just a second. Board member Skinner said, when was some of the things that happened? I wrote down some of the dates. On May 21st, 2025, the trial court entered its final judgment. It said that the ballot language was inappropriately done. However, the court found that the city had home rule authority to amend the charter. We believe that, as Ed has said, there are constitutional arguments against that we are now interposing in the current litigation we have and also up on appeal. On June 2nd, very shortly after that, we filed our notice of appeal to the first DCA. On 10 days later, the city adopted ordinance 2025-416 to again overturn the legislature's special act, the will of the people through our legislature, to dissolve us once again. On June 19th, we filed an emergency motion to stay with the trial court. So that was done expeditiously. On 6/19, we reached out to the trial court for hearing times on the emergency motion for stay. And then on 6/23, the city filed its opposition to Grua's emergency motion. On July 2nd, we followed up on our request to schedule the hearing on the emergency motion. These things don't just happen. You have to get permission from the court to get the hearing time. You have to coordinate it with the other side, and so that's what the effort was happening in early July. On July 9th, Grua replied to rebut the city's opposition. The first day for the hearing offered by the trial court in which the respondents the city indicated that they were available was August 7th. So nearly a month later, this is the first time that they were available. On August 7th, the trial court finally heard and denied our motion for stay for lack of jurisdiction. On August 18th, Grua sought relief from this court for a constitutional writ, the first DCA for a constitutional writ. The court denied that writ, saying that a vote had not happened yet. So we tried the all writs constitutional writ, which is an extraordinary remedy. In my 43 years of practice, I've never filed a constitutional writ. So it's something that is very out of ordinary, but we thought was very important for us to file that. I suspect Derek has never filed a constitutional writ, an all writs petition as well. I'm not sure about that. He researched it very extensively, and there's a handful of cases where the all writs petition has ever been filed in the state of Florida. And basically it's, as Ed just said, we're saying you're going to lose jurisdiction of this case, and it's of great public import. And court, you need to have an opportunity to hear this. There's been some intimation that that's not a merits decision, or that we do not have a substantial likelihood of success or merit on appeal. And in fact, the city argued that in front of the first DCA. And I believe that's not, we can't get into the minds of the ruling as to why the ruling happened. It hasn't been explained to that extent. But certainly the city interposed that argument that we don't have the right to be there, we're meritless in our arguments, and that sort of thing. The court would not have granted the relief the court granted us if we didn't have the right and there weren't constitutional issues before the court, and an argument that at least needs to be ferreted out. Now, I don't know if we will be successful with those arguments or the city will be successful with those arguments, but there's a fundamental due process right that we have to make that argument that the court was not going to have the opportunity to hear. And that the court ruled upon, and that is not simply saying this is a procedural issue. The court was looking at our arguments and making the ruling. So we think that's an important piece of it. But again, and part of that ruling was in our original constitutional writ that we were premature, a vote had not happened. You don't have the right to do it at this point because it's speculative. What if the vote is against the referendum, and therefore you should come back to us when something happens and we can rule on it. That was a lot of what the court did at that time. On August 27th, we filed a declaratory judgment against Ordinance 2025-416. On September 3rd, 2025, we filed our initial brief with the court in what we call GRUA 1. On September 10th, 2025, in our GRUA 3 case, we filed our motion for statutory suspension to suspend the enforcement of the referendum. And on 9/25/25, the city filed its opposition to that motion. On September 30th, 2025, the trial court heard and denied our motion to suspend the enforcement of the ordinance. On October 6, 2025, we filed a motion for temporary injunction. On October 13th, the court entered its written order on the statutory stay motion to suspend the enforcement. On October 23rd, 2025, the city filed its opposition to our temporary injunction motion. On October 29th, 2025, the trial court heard and denied our motion for temporary injunctive relief. On, as you well know, on November 4th, 2025, the city held its referendum election, and that very evening, 7:30 or so, we filed our constitutional all writs petition, and which the court said now is timely, something has happened, something we can rule upon. So when you look at this list of things that are going on here, we believe that that is, and it certainly illustrates our effort in an aggressive manner. There's something happening virtually every week since the court, or since the city has adopted its ordinance to oppose the position that the city is taking. To say that we're dilatory and we didn't do something to the last minute, I think just completely is inaccurate, and I wanted to set that record straight. I know we say things sometimes in the heat of a moment, but that's just simply not the case. We've been, I think, aggressive, and we have been pursuing our position in detail, and we will continue to do so, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Nothing for me, thank you, unless, of course, if the board has any questions. As always, too, it's been an absolute pleasure working with Scott, Mr. Walker, and the entire Foltz Walker team, and David Theriak, and everybody. And this, when I came on board, and I've talked to each of you individually, I'm here to bring results with Mr. Walker, and this is just the beginning, as far as I'm concerned.
Have you ever filed a constitutional all writs petition before?
Mr. Walker, as you know, none of us had even heard of the thing until we figured it out.
It is extraordinary.
We, as a practitioner, it's very strange to cite law from 1888 and that be the law. They refer to judges as chancellors, and they talk in a confusing old style. Yeah, it's fun, but when there's just very few cases where the court has this on the books in a way that you can explain it.
Well, Mr. Perry, Mr. Walker, we really appreciate all that you've done for this board and for GRU, and all that you continue to do. Thank you.
We have a great team, so thank you.
Next, we have business discussion items. The first one we have is 2025-904, horizontal drilling, directional drilling. This is from the Water and Wastewater Department. We have Andrew Roberts, who's the Director of Water and Wastewater, to go over it. The recommendation is the GRU authority authorize the CEO or designee to, one, execute an annual contract for a 3-year period with 2 one-year renewals with T&D Inc. and General Underground LLC for horizontal directional drilling services, subject to the approval of the utilities attorney as to form and legality, and 2, approve the issuance of purchase orders to D&D Inc. and General Underground LLC in amounts not exceeding the budgeted amounts for each year of the contract, subject to the appropriation of funds for these services for each fiscal year of the contract.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to give a brief summary. So this is a contract that we've used for as long as I've been here, several years. We use it on our daily work in the water wastewater. Gas uses it pretty extensively as well. And so this was the time previous contract had ran its course. Time for us to rebid this. Like the agenda item says, it's for a 3-year period with 2 one-year renewals after that. For water wastewater, we probably use it more than anybody in GRU, so that's why we're up here representing this item. Annually, the contract's about $2.5 million every year across GRU. Primarily, wastewater uses it to what we call bore, which is dig underground without having to trench anything. So we use it to primarily to install what we call water services. Those are typically 1 or 2 inch pipes under the ground. For us, they typically go from one side of the road on the water to the customers on the other side without having to dig up a roadway. We also use it for some smaller mains, 4 inch. So gas uses it in a similar manner. It saves us quite a bit of restoration effort. Nobody likes having a road dug up, much less, in this case, 20 times during a block as we serve different roadways or different customers on the other side. So for us, this is something we use on a regular basis. We put it out for bid. We got 2 respondents, and we're going to award those 2 respondents with contracts. So if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I believe we need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve item 2025-904 as written.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Afternoon, Chuck Ross again. Got a question about the drilling contract. Is this something could also be used for transmission lines?
It's not what it says.
I'm asking the question.
No,
You talked about water, wastewater. I'm asking, it's horizontal drilling, directional drilling. So
No,
is that not something that you do underground, or no? You wouldn't do those
do you
underground?
want me to answer that,
No,
Chair?
my motion was to approve it as written, and it doesn't say anything about that as written, so no, that,
So I'd say put your question out there, and then after we come back, we'll allow.
Okay, because I don't know if those are going to be underground or those are going to be overhead when they're built from Archer to Parker. So I would say, with regard to this contract, considering that we have a situation there that this board may be abolished, that unless it's an urgent situation to enter into this, that you would not do it, would be my gut reaction. And if it's urgent, then that's another story. But this is talking about a 3-year contract, 3-year with 2 one-year renewals. It had 2 bids. Is that normal, just to get 2 bids for this contract? A type of contract like this? Are there only 2 companies out there that offer this type of service? In any case, because of the length of the contract, and like I said, if there is some urgent need to enter into this at this point in time, you're going to be obligating possibly the future people who govern GRU to what I don't know is a properly competitive bid contract. Because and you actually, according to the contract, actually, we don't have the contract yet. That's another thing. We have a summary of the contract. The actual contract's not attached. Maybe it hasn't been prepared yet. I don't know. That's another question. But if it had been prepared, it should have been backup. So I would say I oppose you entering into this contract at this time. Thank you.
Seeing there's no more public comment, back to the board for discussion.
I have one. The number of responders right now, Mr. Ross, right now, the problem is we have numerous fiber optic cables in here coming into town. We're pulling in directional boring crews from Orlando, Jacksonville. I've talked to these individuals because they're having to go around our utilities. So this is urgent. This is common practice by every utility from my time over a decade with DOT and a decade with the city. Directional boring is a necessity. This is very urgent to me because we don't want to impact people's commutes, their neighborhoods, their livelihoods, their sleeping patterns by having to go in, rip up these roads, getting in there early in the morning, not being able to button it up, putting a steel plate over the road. It increases the damage on their cars. Our roads are bad enough in Gainesville. We don't need to be ripping up more. So this is urgent because we don't currently have a contract. We need to extend this. And you need much bigger, when they're talking about a 4-inch to a 6-inch main, underground utilities, it's a much bigger project than these simple directional borings that you're seeing, which is why it's not mentioned in here and why we have water and wastewater. So I can speak from my experience with DOT. We definitely need to move forward with this. It's not going to get any cheaper. Prices are just going to continue to go up right now.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
The board doesn't plan on going anywhere.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Next, we have GRU review, which is 2025-905. Recommendation is the authority here in presentation from the CEO and ask questions if desired.
Before I start, I'll say we don't bore for transmission lines. Not everything we do is associated with a transmission line that we don't have right now. We're not moving toward every resource we have to do something like that. So let me start with the GRU review for October. Do we have the battery here?
Turn it on.
Oh. Maybe Derek can help me with that as well as my legal. There you go.
I do it all.
Yeah. It's all writs and all legal or all helpful. So we always start with the people resources. Our vacancy rates bumped up to about 8.8% in September. One of the things we're finding is it's a little hard, as Mr. Ross said, in this minute of uncertainty, to continue hiring some folks. We were lucky enough to bring in an attorney of Mr. Perry's skills, during this uncertainty. We've hired some other folks, but there are a lot of people that are just a little skittish right now in the midst of this. So we see a little movement upward in some of these vacancies. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that was part of our complaint with the trial court, as well as the versus DCA. Folks look for certainty in this business. Our FTEs are down under 100 for the first time in forever, and that includes us bringing over our staffing personnel, the chief people office with 6 people that were previously, not those particular people, but the city HR was handling that as a service. So in the meantime, we had suspended the collective bargaining agreement meetings with the CWA because of the imminence of the vote. We've brought them back and we've scheduled some more meetings with them because, as I said before, House Bill 1645 is the law. The outlier here is the city trying to overturn a state mandate through a charter. So that's the status quo. And that's what the city ought to be thinking about when they go on these excursions with referendums that go against state law. We have our profit loss through September. And you can see that we're about $8 million favorable compared to what we had budgeted. The $49 million that I'm showing there, as we've talked about in these previous circumstances, that's without the transfers and those other things. It's trying to get it down to something that a businessman would look at on a financial statement and say, okay, that's the money. This isn't money that's obligated over here for transfers, doesn't go in the rate stabilization fund. No, these are monies that then are freed up to pay down debt, to do the general fund transfer and the other things. So that's why it's at $49 million. But we're about $8 million ahead of where we thought we'd be. And I put the key financial variances up there. Almost $12 million of that is additional revenues. $7 million is the access of federal state grants. About $1 million is GRUCOM non-labor expenses. The turbine boiler outages, software systems, it's about $2 million. The item there, wages, salaries, fringes, were about 4 million ahead, over budget. And if you go to the next slide, it's a little bit more of a story than just 4 million. We're actually below in our salaries and regular wages of almost $1 million. We didn't absorb about 2.6 million of wages into capital expenditures. We also had overtime of over $1 million because of storm events, unplanned emergencies. That's the double time and the things that people incur for these emergencies. That will also be refunded, through, totally lost the, yeah. So, we had a higher pension contribution. Boy, mine, when it goes, man, it just goes. Higher pension contribution of about $1 million and higher fringes of about $200,000 for that $1 million. So we were actually lower in the wages, but we had other circumstances. And it's a little unusual, this whole idea of capitalizing your wages into CapEx. Our interest income was lower than what we had anticipated, largely due to $3 million of a real arcane situation you're probably not familiar with. It's called arbitrage rebate. When you borrow money and then you put that into interest-bearing accounts, if you earn more than the rate that you're paying, you got to give that money back to the IRS, the federal government. So we borrowed less than what we could earn money, what money we could earn. And we had to turn back $3 million to the federal government because of that. Because I think in the past, many, many years ago, people would get into tax-exempt bond financing and then invest it and go, oh boy, I did pretty well here. So that's a little bit unusual. And then you see the interest expense. We're less than 2% variance off where we thought we were. So overall, a good year. We like to get a little tighter on some of the wages and salaries and fringes on the CapEx, and that's something we're talking about with the group. But given the year that was, I think that was pretty good. Oh, in terms of the community, still, we always have 6 to 10 items that are going on here. GRU was awarded by the Florida Municipal Electric Association the Building Strong Communities Award. Walt Banks is a finalist. I'm not sure if he's in the final 2 or where he is, but there's an Orby Award that represents excellence in CIO technology and leadership. So Walt is up there for 2026 for the Orby Award. I don't know what Orby what it means, but I think it's good. Debbie Doherty was recognized by the Design Build Institute of America for fostering collaboration at an event in October. Debbie was one of the prime movers and shakers behind the design build at Main Street back when I was here in 2019. So, it was an entree into a different type of strategy for building at GRU, and so she's being recognized. It's interesting how many professional people we have here, isn't it? GRU also was represented by Energy Supply and Energy Delivery at the Santa Fe Fall Career Fair. We had our first ever campus safe and sound event at EOC. It was great. It was there to inspire folks, to keep their mind on task, keep their eyes on task. We had vendors all around Building 7. We had some events. I mean, the place was packed. It was really a great event. So we made some contacts with folks that would give us different safety equipment. They loved the opportunity. So it reinforced the whole safety aspect. And that's one of the biggest things we do. Everything is about being safe in the organization. The charitable campaign is underway with a goal of collecting $30,000 from employees for community charities. So I think that goes through November 30th. Yvette Carter is, moving that along with her team. So a lot of exciting things are just going on at the utility, and we always have something that's there. And I put on the GRU governance, but We had our legal eagles here tell us everything you need to know about that. So if you have any questions about the organization, I'll be glad to answer them, but that's all I had.
Any questions for you? Ed, if you could just go back to Mr. Ross's earlier comment, talk about the difference between the fuel levelization and the stabilization funds.
Oh, do you want to give the microphone too? Just in case somebody didn't hear him.
Sure. If you could go back to Mr. Ross's comment and explain the difference between the fuel levelization and stabilization rates.
Well, the levelization is actually the fund. The adjustment is what you see on the bill. We have a levelization fund where we try to modulate with a null point of being zero. And some months it goes up, some months it goes down, and we look out several months and we try to project out what that fuel adjustment is going to be.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with our natural gas pre-purchase agreement, that helps bring that down.
Well, along with getting equity back from T that went
Yep.
into that fuel adjustment. So we've been managing that, and they're the results. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Director, because I like when people say, well, gee, the bills have went down, but it's all because of the fuel, and it's not because of, the rates. Well, it is. I mean, managing your fuel is one of the biggest things we do here. So we got into natural gas prepayments that are saving us $5 million a year. Sorry, but that's helpful, and I think we ought to recognize that as such. And if we can shift the burden for, the tier structure to folks that can better afford some of that higher usage, we're willing to do that. And that gave 59% of all our customers a reduction in their bill. And I'm not going to apologize for that. So we're doing all the right things. We're down to the 14th highest in the state, and we haven't been there since I started back in 2015. So there's a lot of haters, but we're doing the right thing, and I appreciate all the effort that's put forth by the authority.
Thank you.
Good question, thank you. Anyone else?
One other item that I didn't cover is for all of you out there that think that we are paid, we are doing our civic duty at no pay. I'm not even getting gas money to drive over here, let alone any add-on doing research at my home for internet or anything like that. So those of you that want to complain, do your civic duty, throw your name in the hat. Thank you.
We briefly discussed that some people are struggling to pay their bills, probably all the time, but sometimes this part of the year seems to be rough for a lot of folks. Number one, I think it's misinformation that we're just going to cut you off and not put you back on. That's really, generally speaking, just not going to happen. Unfortunately, the blanket statement, the blanket idea of doing it doesn't sound like it's going to be something that would work. So what I would suggest to people that are struggling, you're your best own advocate. Please call and please see what we can do for you. The next thing, just a personal item when it comes to that, I don't want this to sound harsh, but I don't think it's the government's responsibility to take care of people. I don't think it's the business responsibility to take care of people. I think it's God's responsibility. So because of that, I would encourage you to reach out to local churches and organizations. There are some big, well-off churches here. I donate to one of them every month, and I know they do these types of things. So please reach out to your local organizations that can help people. There's a lot of people giving already, but it's not going to be necessarily easy. You're going to have to do it for yourself, unfortunately, to a degree. So, but even if there is something GRU can do, there is some wiggle room sometimes, and or we can turn you on those programs, but you have to advocate, you have to tell us. Not paying your bill for 3 or 4 months so we turn it off isn't the solution. The minute you think you're going to struggle or behind, please tell us. And if there's something we can do that's reasonable, we will. And if we can turn to the right people to help you, we will. Otherwise, like I said, hit up some of these big churches. That's what they're supposed to do.
Great comments. And I have no additional comments. We're adjourned. Thank you.